Welcome to the Rest Round with Butch Hiles and Gary Hashman.
So we got Chris Brennan here. Not going to do anything too crazy. We'll just jump right into it. But just like your shirt there, the OG of Nogi. So how long have you had those shirts out? Has it been a while?
No, I just had them made for this trip.
Oh, did you really? I like it, man. That's awesome.
It's got the list of everywhere I'm going on the back.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, then how can we not buy it? That's pretty
Gyms on there. What's that?
I said, that's actually pretty smart. How could we not buy it then, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. Well, so do you like, it's kind of funny because I've seen various nicknames you've been given through the years. Like, well, this is really from like, I think one of your DVDs, but at the King of the Kimura, right? Westside Strangler. I mean, I'm assuming none of these nicknames you gave yourself or.
Westside Strangler is my nickname. The King of the Kimura one came off of a DVD series. And then I Kimura'd somebody. And then in the interview afterwards, I said, I said, I know you've seen the video. I'm the King of the Kimura.
Oh, really? So it kind of popped up like that.
Yeah, but the Westside Strangler one was crazy. So I cornered Tito when he fought Guy Mesger the second time.
Really?
And they got in a huge ordeal. That's the one where John McCarthy picks up Tito and yanks him away from Ken Shamrock leaning over the fence.
Yeah, those are hella fights, man.
We ended up locking a room in the back. Me, Tito, my buddy Jeremy, I think Jeremy Horn and one other person, because I cornered Jeremy Horn too when he choked Chuck Liddell.
Really?
Anyway, we're locked back here, and there's all the Hammer House guys and all the Lions Den guys that are outside the door wanting to fight us. And I'm like, bro, I didn't do shit. Like, I'm just here, you know? So we had to get escorted after a long time to our hotel. And when we got to the hotel, they were all waiting outside. And I looked over and I'm looking at everybody. I said, bro, if this pops off, I got Mikey Burnett. He's the only guy my size. Yeah. And my buddy Jeremy goes, oh, bro, he goes, that'd be awesome. Be the East Side Assassin versus the West Side Strangler. And I was like, oh, yeah. I said, that's an awesome name.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty crazy. Well, it's probably a good thing that didn't happen anyway. Like, not because you guys are not one or anything, but like, that's kind of nuts, right? And that would happen.
Definitely not one. It was like 5 on 30.
Yeah.
And then,
those are the old. I mean, remember, I'm sure you've seen the videos. Didn't like Hammer House kind of get in fight with Vanderlei Silva and, you know, like. You know, it's funny. And I don't mind to say this, I guess, because in a weird way, I guess it's kind of known, but like, I would always see Mark out drunk, right? And obviously, he knows recovering alcoholic, I guess, right? Yes. I never really saw him. So like, and again, I don't mean that because I don't want to say it in a derogatory way, but I would, you know, we live in West Virginia, so I'd see him in Ohio all the time, like at a bar or something. And he's a little scary because he just had this like crazy look in his eye, and he'd be like staring at you, and you'd be like, hey, like I'd be like, hey, you know, and then just say weird stuff. You know, I was like, God, this guy goes crazy. We're like, we're in some trouble, you know.
But the most disappointing moment for me, I was coming up at the time, and I think it was UFC 20. We're in like Alabama or something, and or Mississippi, I forget. But I was going by Tito's room, and Tito and Kevin Randleman and a few other guys were in there doing coke on the table and smoking weed. And I'm like, these are the best guys in the sport, and look what they're doing. I'm like, holy crap, you know, it's like, and here you are struggling to make it, not doing any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
I know, and it's different.
Guys like John Jones.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. It's a different time, and like I've heard those stories from multiple people that, you know, people that would love, you know, that we all love too. Actually, it's just which, and to the credit, man, like I don't understand how you can do that and fight. Like, just for example, you know, we're talking and you're eating clean and doing all this cool stuff that I've been watching, and then you've got guys partying like rock stars and then fighting some of the baddest men in the world, you know, the same week. It's a little bit wild, huh?
Yeah.
Times, huh?
I try to tell my fighters and everything, it's like, you're not John Jones, right? There are very, very few people who can do what he does and still perform the way he does, and you're not that guy.
No. Well, no, there's not many that are that guy, right?
Yeah, very few.
Which is cool. I was just listening to the Crawford interview on Joe Rogan, and then it's just cool that that guy was giving him so much props, right? Because normally the boxers, I feel we joke about this down here. Sometimes I think they're still stuck before 1993. You know what I mean? Because it's like you still hear that like, I would just knock you out, or I'd just do this. And I'm like, man, they solved this in 1993. Like, we don't really need to have this conversation. Like, it's already been done. It's over, you know. But he was one of the few that, like, he seemed to talk pretty open. Like, he got the sport. Like, for example, like, I don't know if you listen to it now, but they were just talking, like, he's like, Nagano's going to get killed with Fury. And he's like, I don't mean that in a bad way. If they go the other way, he'd get, you know, Fury would get killed. And he's like, or John Jones would murder all the boxers. But if they come into our world, they just don't do that. So, and he made the same reference, like James Toney went there and got taken down like it was nothing. And it's just two different things. And he was cool. Like, he's like, I get why everybody's going to boxing, is they're finally getting that payday, which is awesome, you know. And actually, quite honestly, that is awesome. Every time I see even one of these guys fight Jake Paul, I'm like, God, it's like so good for these guys making millions, you know, especially at the tail end of your career, when you're kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's like when you're a little impulsive, that money comes in and probably goes out pretty quick. Right. Towards the tail end, at least, you know, like, hey man, like, I probably should save this last bit.
Hold on to this a little bit.
Yeah. Here's a quick question, because I want to ask you some jiu-jitsu stuff too, but how many people do you think have done what you did, meaning you were in like King of the Cage, Pride, UFC, even like there's more than that, but Gladiator Fighting Championship, probably because that's where you live, right? All that stuff. And is anybody else all of those things? Like, I mean, I'm sure there is. It's probably hard to answer, but I'm just thinking, maybe if you're one of the few, you would know, like, hey, I'm the only guy that's been in every one of those things.
I don't know, because you could add in ADCC into that as well. You know, literally right in the middle of my fighting career, I got invited to ADCC on a Wednesday, and I competed against Marcelo Garcia on Saturday. Zero training for a grappling match. You know, and so I was the first lightweight fight in UFC history. I was the first lightweight fight in Pride history. You know, I was fortunate enough to do a lot of those things first, and then to be able to compete in so many of those different organizations, smaller ones and bigger ones. It was very cool. I would have liked to compete in Strikeforce, and I would have also liked to compete in Bellator. Bellator was I don't even know if it had started at the end of my career. I fought in 2012 was the last time I fought. I'm not sure when it started, but me and my son have had a couple of sames. Like, my last MMA fight was at the WinStar World Casino in Oklahoma, and his first pro fight in Bellator was at the WinStar. And then my last UFC fight was in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, and he's had 4 fights at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut during COVID. That was their bubble. So it was pretty cool.
Well, how's that? And that's, you know, a good segue into there. How is that, seeing your son compete and especially at a high level? You know, Bellator is awesome. You know, my sons do jiu-jitsu just now. My first one didn't, but the other two, and it's kind of neat. It's just jiu-jitsu. I'm sure you guys have been through wrestling and everything else. And now, you know, it's the Bellator. And I just watched the highlights, you know, the other day of your son's match. And is that pretty wild? Like, I can't imagine. I wouldn't want to see my kids get hit, to be honest, like that. Like,
yeah, between jiu-jitsu and wrestling, both of my kids probably had 600 matches, you know, and they won so much. And then going into MMA, Lucas's first amateur fight was the week before his senior year in high school started. And then his second one was the week before it ended. And so he was in it young, 17 years old. Texas, they allow you to notarize something to parents and he can fight.
Yeah.
And then he fought one more time and signed with Bellator. And he's now 9-0 in Bellator, ranked number 7, 6 first-round submissions, 1 TKO in the second round, 1 decision. And then this last weekend, so he hadn't lost a round yet in 8 fights. And this last fight, he was down 2 rounds going into the last fight, or into the last round. And it was hard for me, you know, because he was fighting a striker, and everyone kept asking me, you know, we want to see a striking, we want to see a striking. And I was like, well, I'm sure everyone wanted to see Khabib striking too, but instead he just beat the crap out of him, you know, and choked him. And so I said, you won't see his striking until someone forces him to strike with him. So for 2 rounds, they were on the feet the whole time. He was down, not by a lot, but he was getting his leg eaten up. He's a southpaw, so that calf kick typically doesn't land, but we fought another southpaw, so it was there. And we knew it would be, but Weber Almeida is a very good fighter out of Machida's camp, and fought real good range and stuff. And I told him going into the 3rd round, I said, you got to finish. You're down 2 rounds. You've got to go out there and finish, man. And I know he felt it slipping away, his whole everything.
Yeah.
And he went out there with 90 seconds left and got that knockout. And then kind of walked away shaking his head. And everyone's like, why? And then he sat down and everyone's like, why are you shaking your head? He's like, he didn't really get to enjoy the knockout because he was so disappointed in his performance. And it wasn't even his performance. It was the other guys. The other guy performed better. And Lucas didn't perform bad. He wasn't on that guy's level of striking yet. And he knocked him out, So I always tell my guys, you don't really get fluked and get submitted, but anybody can knock out anybody. And it doesn't always take the better striker to get the knockout.
No, especially MMA too, man. Don't you like people are swinging for the fences more? There's a lot more openings because you can fake a shot. There's some stuff in. You got to watch the kicks. And now, how many knockouts have we seen somebody throwing like a jab off to the side and make you duck and get kicked in the head? I mean, it's just so much going on.
So it's hard, man. I cry after every fight. I'm not gonna lie. Literally
walk
away and cry after every single fight. Because it's bad enough, but then I've done it. I did it, and I know all the possibilities. So it keeps me like on edge the entire time, and I try to make sure I'm doing a great job cornering as well, and giving the proper advice and not the dad advice. But you should just tap. I know
it's rough.
Just not walk in there.
Yeah. I mean,
he's really, really good. I've got another one wrestling D1 now who's going to start fighting next year, and it just he's great at it. He's really good at the sport itself. He wasn't a fighter growing up, and he just trains really hard. And it's fun and awesome to watch. The highlight for me so far has been getting to an event, and it has Lucas Brennan this big and Chris Brennan right here below it as the corner. His first couple of fights, they talked about me for the first 2 minutes, of a 2.5 minute fight. Yeah. And now it's changed and they don't do that, so that's what I was really hoping for, that he would not have to be under that too much, and he'll always be there a little bit, but it should be about him.
Have you guys ever talked about that? Like see if it bothered him or anything like that?
Oh yeah. And he's talked about it in interviews. He said it bothered me more than it bothered him. It didn't bother him at all, and he just is there fighting. I just want to make sure that he gets all the glory he deserves for putting in the work.
Yeah, it reminds me, not in a weird. It's not paralleled, but like was that Rocky V where like Rocky's training Tommy Morrison, whatever his name was in the movie, right? And it's too much for this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that. Not the same because you guys are father and son, but I just wonder how that would be all the time. Like I don't think I'd care if somebody's talking about my dad all the time. But like, yeah, he's he's pretty like, for example, who's that boxer now? Is he like the nephew of Muhammad Ali? So every time he fights, he's the nephew of Muhammad Ali, right?
Right.
But then roundabout, that's kind of why he's being talked about, period, right? Like, so you kind of have to embrace it to a certain degree.
Right. Like my son wouldn't have made his professional debut in Bellator had he not been my son. You know what I mean? But from that point, he took the wheel and has done the rest on his own, obviously with good camps and stuff, but he's the one that's performing. And so I just wanted to make sure that's a perfect example, that Tommy Morrison thing, because he couldn't take it anymore and lost it,
Yeah.
And it's not like that here, just because I've been the one who was more uncomfortable than him. And just kind of, as soon as someone starts talking about me there in an interview or something, I'll redirect it right away, to him.
I think that's helpful though. Like you're self-aware, right? Like if you're just sitting there and it wouldn't even be a bad thing, but you're just not thinking about it, at least so that like I think that makes people feel better too, because they're like, hey man, quit talking about me, like talk about that. So then at a certain point they're like, it can be mad at you because they know it's not you, it's the other people, right?
Right.
On another note, what is going on with Bellator? Are they buying PFL or PFL buying them, or anybody know? I mean, maybe you're not allowed to talk about it. I don't know, but
it's not that I'm not allowed to talk about it. We don't know a lot. We know that there is PFL is trying to buy them, but not successful so far. They've gone to Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia and tried to raise $280 million, to buy it. But at the same time, they can't just have enough to buy it. They've got to have enough to so they want to buy it and crush it and take the fighters and fire rumor has it 80% of the roster. And so that's going to leave a lot of people out in the open. But at the same time, there are fighters like us, for example. Lucas makes a lot of money in sponsorship, and that goes away. And it's in our contract that we get sponsorship. It's also in our contract that we're not in a tournament, and we would directly be in a tournament if we switched over to PFL. So they would have a lot of people basically fighting them to be out of their contracts, or if they wanted to be, or they have to renegotiate people's deals, but they at the least have to keep the deal that everyone's contract is, and they don't pay like that. They pay at the end like that, but like per fight, Lucas gets paid well, and they don't pay like that through the tournaments and stuff. So I don't know what the deal is, but there's a couple other media companies who are trying to buy it, but they're not allowed. Bellator can't talk to them yet because this deal's going on with PFL. Mm-hmm. So legally, I guess that's on the table. They can't, but I don't even know how far I'm allowed to go into this. PFL's in like $300 million in debt.
Okay. Well, that follows my next, because I was like, you don't even know why they're being bought. Like, did something happen? So that kind of answers my thought.
Right. They're $300 million in debt, and Bellator has zero debt because they're owned by Viacom. So Viacom's just invested in the company like it was a TV show that Paramount puts on. Mm-hmm. So there's zero debt in Bellator and a ton of debt in PFL. So it would suck for them to buy it and then them not be successful, and then all these fighters,
Yeah. Well, that explains.
Viacom does want to sell it.
Yeah, it's wild because that everybody keeps wondering where PFL's coming up with this money, because like now it actually has great fighters, a great organization, but like nobody sees it. Like, where's the exposure, right? It's like how are they doing this?
I've been to two of them. I've been to the championships, and there might have been 500 people there.
It's wild. Yeah. So I guess they're I guess they're just putting it all on the line, and if it works out, it works out, and that's a heck of a risk, right?
Yeah, I mean they should be more successful themselves before trying to buy another big one like the number two.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, as an outsider looking, that all these business decisions don't seem that great, but heck, I don't know what's going on, right? Like it seems a little iffy, but I don't own a fight organization either, so maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Huh. Well, then, yeah. Well, thinking of, because I want to kind of get in this too, and you already mentioned going with Marcelo Garcia. How did that go? Was that the best person that you've went with jiu-jitsu wise? I mean, name wise, 100. Like, he's pretty awesome, right? Like,
another better person.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's kind of a dumb question, right? But I mean that. And, like, it's funny because some people at my gym don't know him, like, because they're new, right? And they just started. We were talking the other day, and I don't know if it was because Gordon Ryan was there doing seminars, and they're like, well, who is that guy? Like, why is that happening? So I was like, that guy is a legend. I was like, in fact, so Jake Shields was here not long ago, and I was telling them, and, I don't mean it bad way, but I was like, Jake Shields kind of got famous by just doing good with Marcelo Garcia. And that's not exactly true. So I don't mean it in that bad way, but that's like, I remember when he would fight in the UFC or Strikeforce, where like, that's what the announcers would talk. But like, man, I saw, especially Joe Rogan, I remember him saying, like, I saw him go with Marcelo Garcia and he lasted 20 minutes and there's a blah, 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 blah. It's like, imagine like a guy is so good. And Jake Shields is awesome too. It's like that you just get that much recognition because you lasted a while with the guy. I mean, that's crazy,
I think, did he not lose to him the same day I did? In 2005, he beat me, Diego Sanchez, Pablo Popovich. Same day he beat Rico Rodriguez in the absolute. But Jake was in the division as well. I thought he went with him too, but it wouldn't have been 20 minutes. It would have been 10 at the time.
Yeah, and they were talking about practice footage because there used to be like,
oh, that video. I saw that video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And and even that, like, that's another thing we're talking about. I was telling them that Ryan Hall and Eddie Bravo and all those guys that were elite and everybody knew, they would go to Marcelo's and I guess have, like, I was gonna say epic matches, but I think Marcelo just, he's especially probably at his home gym, he probably is running through everybody, I'd imagine. I mean, like, it's like one of those stories, like you hear Marcelo stories almost not as bad, but almost like the Hickson stories, right? Because it's like all the people that go there that are legends, and then they're like, oh my God, that guy's just, destroying us. So, for the people that don't know what that's like, what was that like? I mean, he's a legend, and I think it's better even to talk about. I mean, he's obviously got cancer now, and it's sad, right? But it's like kind of makes you feel good to talk about him because he is a legend, you know.
Oh yeah, he's a monster, and he like I didn't know who he was a lot at that time. You know, he had won the one before. I think he had choked Shaolin, and that's
What
the
made
one
him
he
famous? Yeah,
arm drag and jumped on Mike Van Arsdale's back and choked him as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
You know, and so my guy Russ Mira, who's a stud, he's one of my black belts. At the time, he was a purple belt, and I got him in as an alternate, and he had Jeff Glover first. Well, I was asking him because he was a fan of Marcelo's already. He's like, just don't let him get your back. Don't let him get your back. Don't let him get your back. And I was like, okay. And then Leo Vieira is a buddy of mine. And I
Yeah.
was like, hey, what do you think if I pull guard because his, or if I pull guard because his guard is so nasty? He goes, it's very heavy on top. And I was like, okay, never mind. And so I figured out that he arm drags this arm. So I kept it tight to my body and I was leading here. He yanks it, I pull it back, and he yanks this one.
Really?
And as he grabs it on his way by, I threw my leg up to not let him get my back and end up in my guard, which saved me probably, from losing 30 seconds into the match instead of 5 minutes in. And he didn't feel like he was putting a lot of effort. He just boom, 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 boom. He passed. I regarded him. He almost passed. I kept him in, and we somehow. I think I went for his leg, and he jumped back to the feet, and then he came at me again, and he went like from past a mount real crazy, and he was smoking for an armbar. I caught my hand. I was able to roll him and get on top, and as I got on top, I yanked my arm out. And as I yanked my arm out, 3 of my ribs went, and they pulled away from the cartilage wall.
Yeah.
I'll let you feel. They still are still nasty from then, but he let go right away, and because he felt it and he heard it, and I did, and I just fell back, and I didn't get on the mat for a year. I was out for a year because of it. Yeah, it was so bad. I had a fight. A month later. I couldn't fight, and it was honestly, it was like probably the downfall of my fighting career. I had rib problems from that point on after that.
Well, for people who don't know, like I broke off like the bottom half of my ribs off I didn't really do nothing. It just happened, probably kind of similar situation, but it's some of the worst pain that I've ever had. Like, I mean, you can't sleep, you can't get up, you can't do anything. And then, like you said, like mine, 100% definitely, I'm sure not as bad as yours, but like the way it healed, like I was in years ago, like Hawaii. I mean, just trying to like do like these little surf lessons, laying on the board, and it hurts like everything.
I can't lay down on anything hard. It's got to be like on a mattress or something. I can murder people from side control.
Yeah, exactly. Just rub that in there like a little nub or something, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. And like you said, so when you did that on short notice, like, because that's during your fighting career, right? So that kind of like,
fight a month later that I couldn't fight. So I made no money for that, and then didn't get to fight for money either. So it was just like, it was a dumb decision, but at the same time, man, I looking back, I'm so glad that I was able to compete against him, because in my eyes, he's the best. He was just a monster.
Well, and then everybody just mentioned in that lineup was like a beast, right? Like, I mean,
Aoki was in there too. He beat Aoki too.
Jeez, yeah, those are all.
He wrist blocked Pablo Popovich in the finals.
Did he really? Man, that's craziness. Yeah, who'd have thought? That's the one too, right? Where everybody got mad at Rico Rodriguez, and he like slammed him really hard.
Slammed him. Yeah. He was on his back, and he jumped back and like flopped on his back.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what, like, ADCC was always awesome, even back then. I think, because then they were in Abu Dhabi, right? So it's like a lot of people still didn't know about it. I had some friends that were in it back then and some stuff, but it's weird because I think they gravitated more to the MMA guys right there because there's more names, right? But that being said, I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, most of the MMA guys were also top-notch grapplers too. It was not like separated as much as it is now. It's
right. Like Diego had good jiu-jitsu. Jake obviously had good jiu-jitsu. GSP was in it, got flying armbar in 13 seconds by Leo Santos. He was in and out. There was great guys, and like you could slam on takedowns, but you couldn't slam out of submissions. And he was on Rico's back with a choke and he slammed. So that was basically illegal. They didn't
He's a
DQ him, though. They
monster.
let him go again. What's that?
He was a monster too, Rico. He's a big old dude. You know,
180 pounds. He was giant.
Yeah. I mean, that to me too, like, not to talk about ADC the whole time, but like, I remember for me, Rico Rodriguez, he like knee barred somebody. I can't remember. Somebody like fairly popular. I don't think it was that tournament, but it was like, that put him on the map for me too, because I didn't know his jiu-jitsu was that good. And then they're like, yeah, he's under Jean-Jacques. And I was like, really? Like, I had no idea. You know, it was like, other than the fake matches with like Jeremy Horn and a couple of those guys, you know, like, yeah, I think they did. Yeah, because you got like, what, 100 grand for the fastest submission or whatever.
They got never allowed back.
Yeah, I heard some stories. So I worked with the ADCC a little bit, and we actually ran a trials here in West Virginia in 2014. It was like, it was random. Some other stuff happened, and it fell out of Florida. So they had like 2 weeks to find a place. Since they knew me, they called me. So it wasn't probably their best trials, because it was like not hyped up at all. Like if you look, you know, we literally had 2 weeks, and then it's funny, the venue I could get was not in Charleston. It was this town called Nitro that was like 20, 30 minutes away, that has no hotels because we're in West Virginia. So we had to like put people in a hotel in West Virginia or in Charleston, shuttle them 20 minutes to this little high school gym. This is ADCC, like the Olympics of grappling, you know, and looking back, it's pretty embarrassing. Like, but we made it happen, you know, like Gordon Ryan was in it. That's before he was famous. He lost to Josh Hayden, I think. So he didn't even win it. His brother was in it. Tom Blast won, Matt Aurora won. I mean, but it still wasn't as big. It wasn't as big as it is now, you know, but anyway, like, talking to those guys then about some of that stuff, yeah, you just wouldn't want to make those people mad either. Like, and that's what they're talking. Yeah, forget they're talking about somebody stealing money from them, and they're like, "Yeah, you do know we cut people's hands off for that, right?" Like, and I was like, "Gosh, you know, these not good." Like, I'd hate to be around that stuff, you know. But that's impressive, man. And then that kind of leads into so was it because MMA was over, or still MMA, that you went to IBJJF and did the Nogi Worlds and stuff?
I had retired in 2012, and then I'd really never got to compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments because of my fighting career. Like, I jumped in one here, one there. I did a Naga, you know, I did something in Vegas one time. I can't remember what it was, but I never got to really compete and train for it. And I felt like my jiu-jitsu was really good. You know, I'm like, I roll with a lot of guys. My jiu-jitsu is very good. My Nogi jiu-jitsu, obviously, because I hadn't, like, now I haven't put a gi on in 25 years. Wow. So it was, you know, it was different. And so I had been working on a lot of stuff, and everyone's like, are you going to compete? You know, you should do Worlds. And I was like, bro, I haven't competed in 8 years, you know, and they said, and that was Marcelo, you know,
that's awesome.
8 years ago. And so I haven't competed in since then. And so my kids were getting ready to do a tournament. So I jumped in and I did a new breed tournament, and I won. And then like a month later, I did the Austin Open, and I won. And everyone's like, you should do Worlds. And I was like, okay. So I went and I did Worlds, and I won. I went right away the following weekend in New York and did Pans, and I won. And then I came back and redid it the next year and redid it the next year and did the same thing 3 years in a row. And I had 19 matches between Pans and Nogi Worlds, and 17 submissions, all from the same spot, the exact same sub, and then one guillotine, and then one points. And so it was. I was like, man, as I was catching this position on everybody, I'm thinking it is harder to catch the blue belts in my gym with this than it is these black belts, because they do it with me every day, you know, so they know it's coming. And I hadn't competed in that long, that I was like getting out into the public, you know, and getting to roll with other guys. And I was like, gosh, you know, the stuff I'm working on is working so well. And I've seen all my guys do it in competition and stuff, but at the level I was doing it was different, you know, so it was a lot of fun. And then I 2016, I was getting ready to go again. I had a torn rotator labrum and subscap, and I went to guillotine someone and tore my bicep, so that I was out. The following year, tore the other side. Following year, tore the bicep off my elbow. So I had 3 surgeries in a row, and it's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah. That's his father time probably caught up, right? That's just, you know.
But I made it my whole career with no surgeries.
I know it's all right. Yeah. This kind of fun. I've done nothing like you, but it's the same. Like from last 2 years, torn bicep. It seemed like every time I walked in the gym, like something happened, and it would be so. Like at the time I tore my bicep, I don't, you know, it was hurting anyway, so I did it something, you know. But I ended up sparring with like a 15-year-old kid. We weren't like not even sparring, like, and I just threw like a left hook, not even trying to hit him, and it just ripped right off. And I'm like, I'm not even doing anything.
That's what I tore mine, left hook.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then like, did you end up having surgery for? Oh, you said you did, yeah.
So I had my shoulder was already torn while I was doing Worlds. When the bicep tore, it was jacked up. So they fixed that. I had come back, went through all the therapy, started, you know, exercising. First day back sparring, I threw a left hook and it tore off my elbow. So I had to have the surgery to the radial nerve or the radial whatever.
Yeah.
They bumped my radial nerve.
Oh,
and my hand was like this for 7 months, zero feeling from my elbow to my hand.
So were you pretty nervous?
Was I nervous?
You're like, it's never going to come back, or were they like,
oh yeah, I'm left-handed. It was crazy. He goes, 30 to 60 days is it'll be back to normal. And for average person, and you're not average, it'll be faster than that. 7 months.
Geez.
7 months.
Yeah. And that's like you said, that's what you do. And you're like, man, man, that'd be nerve-wracking, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, before I ask the other, like, I don't want to forget this part. So what, when I was looking up some of the IBJJF stuff, they had a little tidbit there that said had only 4 points were scored against you in all that time. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I didn't know that any were, but I guess 2 points or two different were takedowns.
That's crazy. That for
I competed against in the finals my first year, or the second year, I competed against a Panamanian Olympian, a wrestler, and he wouldn't wrestle. He wouldn't do anything. It was just backing up. So I finally kept trying to get takedowns on him or jump, you know, whatever. And he ended up on top of me and he'd get 2 points. But I ended up beating him anyway.
That's insane, especially no gi, because in my opinion, like, you know, we do both gi and no gi, but like no gi is like tough to hold people down. You know what I mean? Like I could just see, especially now when people are going back and forth with leg locks, like sometimes you can see points getting scored back and forth. Like just to have no points scored like that's pretty impressive, especially too, like, it sounds like you're one of those guys that don't pay attention. Then somebody's probably like, hey, you know, like nobody's ever scored a point at, you know, you'd be like, really? Like, I didn't know. Like, I'm just
someone else asked me that before, and I was like, I don't know. I said, to be honest, I didn't know if any had. And then I was like, oh, I guess the guy from Panama got two takedowns on me. So yeah.
So in that position that you were mentioning, is that something you're going to show in the seminar? Because that is, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to do this. Well, main reason too is to hype up the seminar that's this Sunday, right?
Right.
And everybody's been asking, like, so, hey, what's he going to show? And I was like, well, we'll just wait and see. So I'm assuming that you have a kind of a thing that you're doing, or like a theme.
So I've got 3 things. I'm passing, guillotines, or Kimuras, and basically you pick 2 of them.
Okay.
And we can split it like that, or I can just do all Kimuras or all guillotines, easy for 2 hours. But whatever you like. But the position I'm talking about comes off of my Kimura. It's called home base, that I call home base. And that's where all of my good stuff comes from.
Well, it sounds like we should pick that, especially if you're destroying everybody. That would be like kind of a no-brainer, right? No, that sounds awesome, man. Because I that's the thing. It's funny because when we were talking earlier, I've got a lot of new guys, but they knew exactly. They're more like, I didn't know if the new guys would know what was going on. And we've had this a few times. Like we had just had Ken Shamrock here, like, because he was here for wrestling thing. Like nobody knew who that was either. You know what I'm saying? It was like, so like, I think like 6 people showed up. Sometimes it's sad because I think this newer crowd, they don't even try to like kind of figure out what's going on. Like
the history.
Yeah. And it's sad. Like I'm friends with Dan Severin, and every time he would come through, and he still does a lot of gigs, like especially all those guys are, I don't know if he's still pro wrestling, but he'd do these little shows. And every time he'd come through, he'd be like, hey man, you want me to stop by? And then I was like at a certain point, I was like, I don't think so anymore. Not that I don't want you, but like you're just not going to make any money because people are just clueless anymore. You know,
Right.
it's like, and it's sad. It's not good. It's, you know, I get it too. I was a young guy too. I just guess I didn't really pay attention. You know, now they're all the Sugar Sean O'Malley's and whatever else, and nobody's paying attention. But that being said, everybody, like my brand new people, they're like, oh, this is really exciting. And then I had friends from around other areas, other cities, right? And so it's going to be like exciting. Yeah, yeah. So
Sweet.
hopefully, yeah,
Sweet.
hopefully it'll all come down. The only problem, like some of the other guys had, I think their gym had some seminars planned too with some ADCC guys or something too. So, but it's going to be exciting. And then, so yeah, that sounds great. And then what I want to, like, it looks to me, not like I'm stalking your Instagram or anything, but I saw your waterfall pictures and some stuff, and you're doing a lot of hiking. So are you trying to see these cities and states when you're there? I mean, obviously, but I don't know how fast your road trip's going or.
Yeah. So fortunately I booked yours so that I have a couple days after.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere else besides where I am right now, like I went from Tennessee up to Virginia, just spent the night in Virginia, and then got to Connecticut, taught a seminar, and then the next morning I taught a seminar in Maine. The next morning I taught a seminar in Boston at Joe Lozon's.
Mm-hmm.
But from Maine, I came to where I am right now in New Hampshire, got a place. I had a place booked here. Went to Boston and came back here. Then I taught here. Tomorrow I teach in Vermont, which is an hour and 15 minutes away. So I've been here the whole time and just exploring all around here. But most of the places I was right to the next place. Like tomorrow in Vermont, I'm leaving there and driving toward Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
spend the night somewhere, chilling in Niagara Falls for a day off, and then I'm going straight from there to Menor, Ohio, at Jason Dent's.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then the next morning I teach at Lou Parmesanni's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Then on Sunday I teach for you, and I'm off after your morning of Sunday. I'm off Monday and Tuesday, still there. And then I'm actually going to North Carolina Wednesday and Thursday off. And then I teach Friday in North Carolina, Saturday in Alabama, Sunday in New Orleans, and then home.
Well, that's cool. Do you think you'll have some time? Like if I come up with some places for you to go, and it's not like anybody has to be with you, but like there's some really, really cool, like it's West Virginia. So this is outdoor kind of land. We've got
of course.
Really cool place called Seneca Rocks. It's a great hike up on a crazy looking mountain and stuff. So I'll give you a couple ideas and
yeah, for sure. Monday I'll definitely do some whatever you say is cool. That's where I'll go.
Yeah.
This whole thing started, I had kind of back-to-back camps with my son, and I wanted to take a break and just kind of go sightsee, get away, leave him alone, and teach a couple seminars to pay for the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up booking 12 seminars. As soon as I put it out there, I was like, pew, 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 pew. I was like, well, it's good that people want them. I said, so I'm cool. And it worked out really cool. And so I just made shirts and made kind of a big deal about it. And it's cool. It's been going really well.
Well, and that's what I think you and I were talking before. Like when did we talk about a seminar? Was it like 20 years ago? It was a long time ago.
It was probably close. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. Like everything in my mind.
Was I in Texas yet?
What's that?
Was I in Texas yet?
That's a good question. I feel like you're still in California. Like, yeah,
I've been in Texas for 17 years now.
It probably was. Yeah. That's what's funny. Like, cause my short-term memory is terrible. Like if, I walk in a room, I don't even know I'm there anymore. Same. Yeah. I think it's the problem with being
everything from before.
Yeah. Head trauma. But yeah, I remember our conversation and they literally it wasn't much of a conversation, but I remember for like 20 years ago, because I was like, we couldn't get it worked out, but then it's funny. And then you remember too. And I'm like, how do I remember stuff like that? And I don't even know why I'm at places. Or my wife will just say, hey, can you do this tonight? And I'm like, man, you better text me, email me, set a thing on my calendar, everything else.
Set an alarm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Oh, well, but yeah, man, this is awesome. I appreciate you doing that because, like I said, I think I wanted everybody to hear what's going on, especially for the new guys to know what's going on. And plus, there's a little confusion. A lot of people are like, are we doing MMA stuff? Because I didn't really say, which is my fault, So, but either way, they're all good because, Nogi grappling is part of MMA. So even for those guys, it's perfect. So,
sure. Yeah, if you got some fighters there, I'll definitely can go over some things with them too. And I'm on have nowhere to go afterwards. Like some of these, I've had to get in the car when I'm done and drive to the next place, you know, and you know, I've got time afterwards and I can do whatever.
No, that's gonna be awesome. Well, this is gonna be really fun. Are you coming in? Are you getting here Sunday or are you getting here Saturday?
I am getting there Sunday morning. I'm staying in Pennsylvania that night. And then I think I am. I have to look on it's on my phone, but I have to look on there. I think I'm staying in Pennsylvania that night, then coming there and then staying there for 2 nights till Tuesday.
You know, I'm pretty sure Lou's place is not that far, maybe 4 hours. I mean, it is kind of far,
Yeah,
but like
looks less than 4. No, it's one of my short ones. It's not bad.
Well, that's obviously when I was talking today, that's what I do. You know, I'm in medical device sales, so that's all I do is travel. So it's funny. That would be torture for me, like maybe 10 years ago. Now that's all I do is drive. So I'm like, it's just 4 hours. It's nothing, you know.
I've already driven so far. I'm glad I didn't use my own car, but I got a rental car, and I had to get an oil change today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I messaged them and they're like, you can take the car back and they'll give you another one, or you can just get the oil change and we'll reimburse you. I was like, well, the car's already got all my shit in. I'll go ahead and I'll get it changed and just reimburse me. But I was like, it's a lot of miles.
It is.
I think I've got like 5,500 or 6,000 left.
I mean, you would literally be the only person I've ever heard of getting an oil change on a rental, right? Like that's, I mean, I've never even heard of it. So that's awesome, man. Well, I look forward to it, man. And you know, you have a good night and relax. And I thank you for doing this, man. And we'll have a good time. And you know, there's some really cool stuff. I'll give you a couple of options for, you know, that way you can enjoy West Virginia. Because that is the bummer when people get to come here. We don't have a lot of people. We don't have a lot of other stuff. But there's that kind of stuff, the outdoor stuff and really cool stuff. And so there'll be some stuff that I think you'll like. So it'll be good, man.
Sweet.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. Can't wait to see you on Monday or Sunday.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I look forward to it. All right, man.
All right.
Well, you have a good night and thank you again for all your time.
Thank you. See you.